is only a transition to a different sphere of consciousness. Carol Ann is not like those she's with. She is a living presence in their spiritual earthbound plane.
Hello and welcome to episode 52 of the Talking to the Dead podcast. So today is October the 23rd, and I started this series last year on October the 26th. That was the very first episode. So this is my 52nd episode. It's the first full year of the Talking to the Dead podcast. And I had been thinking of ways to sort of not so much celebrate, but to maybe go through some of the ideas that have been raised in the last 51 episodes. And as always happens, really, I just wasn't terribly sure what to do and where these sort of episodes would go. And as usual, something pops up and makes it extremely easy at the last minute. So I'm very glad to tell you that for me to be able to finish this particular series, I've been able to come up with a great idea. And what it will be is that I got a very nice email last night from Jen, and you'll remember her from a couple of weeks ago. She asked me if I could do a reading for her recently deceased mother, Debbie. And as you know, I'm not a medium really. I seem to have mediumship skills in certain directions, but I'm certainly not a professional medium. I don't charge or anything. But I find the whole thing fascinating, so I was very happy and volunteered to help her. As the listeners to that episode will know, I deliberately, for the sake of Jen, who was very, very skeptical, as she should be, that I wasn't some sort of fraud, or if I was given information, would I be able to look her up or look her mother up and try to find information and make it all sound real. She only gave me her name, her first name, nothing else. I don't know where she comes from. I think I knew she came from the United States, and obviously she speaks English, but that's it. So I think that was a very good form of control. I think we will discuss in her letter in a minute why probably having some form of control with a psychic is so important, particularly if you want to feel that what you're getting is genuine. So I'm going to go through Jen's letter because it's quite long. It's very interesting. It gives great feedback about the successes and not successes of my reading, but also she asks me a whole bunch of questions at the end. And these questions have been addressed in all the episodes that I've done this year. But it gives me a great opportunity just to refresh your memories and mine about what was said. As I said, I never listen to my episodes, so I can't really listen back and tell you what I said. So I hope I get it right. But I think it'd be great fun. So I'm basically going to interview myself today. So we're talking to the living on behalf of Talking to the Dead. So Jen started off by saying that she was obviously sorry for not getting straight back to me. I did the reading over 2 weeks ago, and I did write back to her a couple of times asking her what the feedback would be, because of course I'm interested. And she said, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for doing what you do. I really appreciate the taking of the time to do so. She said, this was my very first attempt at having a medium contact with my mum. I'm not really exactly sure what to think. I've spent the past week re-listening to the episode a few times and talking to family to see if certain parts made sense to them or not. As far as feedback, I am a brutally honest person, and I will try to explain my thoughts, feelings, and perspective as best as I possibly can in order to provide you with the feedback and or validation on the reading you are seeking. For starters, please note that I am a very analytical person by nature, so please don't take any personal offense to anything I may or may not say or write here. My brain doesn't always view things the way a majority of society probably does. Join the club, Jen, is all I can say. However, for the very first time in my life, I went forward with this reading with a completely open mind, hoping to make a connection with my mother on the other side and to hear from her. In the past, I would never speak of death. I was also very skeptical of this kind of stuff and rarely, if ever, would give it a second thought nor entertain it. With that being said, I would say some of it sounded like it could have been my mum coming through. However, in my over-analytical mind, other parts seemed like they were broad, general things, concepts that could fit for anyone. Yes, Jen, I have told a few of my correspondents to definitely look into things like Barnum statements whenever you're seeing a psychic. And Derren Brown, the magician, has done a fantastic episode, which I think I've talked about, which is on YouTube. And he's done it with a guy who's a very, very famous biologist and academic. And he's written all sorts of books on atheism. And I think it's well worth you looking at that, because most definitely Derren is completely and utterly convinced, because he's found no evidence to the contrary, that all psychics are frauds. And he's a very, very gifted magician and NLP practitioner. He's very good at misdirection and hypnotism. And he should certainly know, and he can spot a fake psychic from a mile away, because 99.9% of them use the same tricks. And he reveals what these tricks are, which are the tricks he uses on stage in order to get the same effect as a stage psychic does. And it's all about defrauding the people and lying to them and getting information out of them without them realizing the information is being taken from them. And he uses the typical things, which are things I think called Barnum statements. And these are questions that you ask your sitter. And these questions are so broad, they could apply to anyone. And also the replies that you give back are fed entirely around the information you're getting from your sitter. So it's a completely fraudulent procedure. So, of course, Jen, I'm not at all surprised if you are wanting to eliminate the possibility that anything I said was a bunch of bull, and I was using far too many platitudes, or if my comments were far too wide and it could apply to far too many people. And I'm completely in agreement with you that you've got to be so careful with psychics. But I can only offer in my own defense that I don't do that. And I think if you listen to my podcast, you can hear I don't. And I don't take a penny. I'm not a professional psychic. I'm not interested in making money out of people. So I think that should also give you a bit of comfort. But she said, prior to the reading, I had asked my mum to give you something very specific that only her and I would know. I didn't pick anything. I told her to come up with it. Just because I know myself, I know no matter what came through, I would somehow find a way to explain it, not to discredit you in any way, but more so, is this honestly real? Is there really an afterlife? And so is it truly possible to communicate with them still? Or is this just another man-made fantasy like the belief in Santa or an Easter bunny to give people a sense of security but false hope? You don't believe in Santa, Jen? Oh dear. In my mind, this is what I honestly had to do. I already knew I gave you very little to go on, just first names. I thought about the very worst case scenario possible here. I don't know what you do for a living, but you are an extremely intelligent, well-rounded and cultured person. Thank you so much, Jen. That's really nice. I don't think I've been called that for a long, long time. But for all I know, you could be an IT specialist in cybersecurity or whatever. Now, I've had a number of people also asking me what I do. Now, I am working, and I work in Cologne in Germany. I have a very high-level job in management. I can't tell you what it is, and I don't want to tell you what it is, because I have another couple of years here before I leave. And I still am very conscious, ever since I've been doing this in my 20s, of people's misconceptions and how people can look at people thinking they're a bit doolally if they're talking to dead people or psychic or whatever. And I don't really need all that. I get enough of it from my wife, who thinks it's completely nuts, and various other members of my family over the years who don't believe in it. So I don't need that pressure. I don't want that pressure, and I don't therefore tell people what I do. I keep myself anonymous. I'm just Philip. I hope in that respect, unless you're really diligent, or as Jen is kind of wanting to think I could be very investigative, I try to keep it quiet because I don't really want people to know who I really am. And she carries on. If so, then with the right knowledge base, that's if I was an IT specialist or in cybersecurity, which I'm not, you could possibly know how to trace an email and proceed with Googling someone for information and or gaining access to their phone. Wow. Where you could view pictures and personal stuff about the person. Well, I don't know, Jen, if any professional psychic would go that far, but maybe you could be right. I can certainly see that people could Google people for information on the internet. And Darren Brown has spoken about that a lot. And he's actually did an episode of catching out a fake medium in England who did precisely that. I think it turned out even worse, that he had a next door neighbor who worked with him. I think it was his sister or something. And the sister would go off and find information about the people who were wanting readings and feed it all to him. So he had a whole very advanced network of getting information from people before they so much as even wiped their feet on his doormat. And of course, I've heard many stories, even the wonderful Doris Stokes, who I grew up with thinking what a wonderful psychic she was. Dear lady, I think, and I apologize to you, Doris, if I'm misquoting what I've read, but I understand, Doris, you were using people and they were feeding information to you. I understand that they may have even used an earphone. So they were people in the back that were milling around with the crowd. They were hearing, they were talking during the beginning, and then at the interval, they were getting information and feeding it to you. So when you announced, I have so-and-so here, it was because you knew full well that somebody in the audience had a relationship to that so-and-so. I know of other so-called psychics who, they have whole dossiers of information that are compiled for them. And they are actively out there finding information and surprising you with what they say they know. So anyway, that's not me. I don't have anyone else to help me anyway. So she continues. She says that by no means am I suggesting you ever did that, but for myself, I needed to take that possibility into perspective and see if anything that was said during the reading could be gathered from the pictures, messages, info contained in my phone and or online, had you or whomever accessed it prior to the reading. Well, most certainly I didn't. So again, I can't imagine that even some of the most discredited psychics could actually hack your telephone and look at your photos. I mean, it's quite an amazing idea. And who knows? I mean, I know that I was warned in one of the episodes this year about a very famous online, or not just online, but a very famous psychic, who again, I won't name, and I realized that they must go to enormous extent, enormous steps to try to find information and feed that back to people. Even if I'm sure they probably even have a gift of some sort, but they want to augment it to make it sound even more genuine. And I presume that by getting people trapped into you believing them, you're liable to pay more and more money. It becomes a bit like Scientology in that respect, and you get roped into months and months of paying a lot of money in the hope of hearing about your dead relatives. It's all very depressing. And as Darren Brown says, it's completely and utterly dishonest and quite disgusting, the way that some psychics behave. She said, a lot of what you said could have been found there, though I know the possibility of that even being possible or happening is quite low. So when I read that, I thought, wow, I must have actually got some things right. And it must have been so right that she thought I had somehow got access to her phone or her online world. Again, I don't know how I'd do that because all I know is her name. Even now, I don't know anymore. I know a little bit more information about her and her mother because, as you'll hear, she's now told me. So let me try to recall the reading as best as I can. To give you more specific feedback, the first part about a nurse, that's all you said. So it's extremely general, vague, and honestly could fit for any person who has died, because at some point when you're ill, you could have contact with a nurse. But a positive note is, I am a nurse, though. She said, I also semi-verified you, were being honest, about being from the United Kingdom, because you mentioned the nurse was wearing blue. The primary colour for nurses in UK is white. Sorry, in the UK is blue versus white in the USA. Well, yeah, I mean, I actually do know that because my mother is American and she was a nurse. And I've seen some pictures of her as a young woman in a white outfit. But most definitely the image that came through to me was a nurse in blue. So I remember that very well. And it's very interesting that, yes, that you're a nurse, Jen. Again, another part you mentioned, forgetting where someone parked the car in a big parking lot. Again, very general, but I'm not sure if that ever happened to my mum, but I would imagine it probably did. But it did happen to me shortly after she died. I couldn't see the car as other cars had obstructed the view, and I was looking everywhere, convinced someone had stolen the car. Yes, and I remember that, again, seeing it like a movie, Jen, and I could feel, in fact, that I think I was you, or I was the person in that car. And it was the frustration more than just not being able to find the car. It was the tremendous feeling of frustration and also helplessness that I'd lost my own car, and somebody was driving me in their car, trying to help me get around this huge, great big parking lot to try to find it. There was a lot about religion that came through during this reading. Again, a topic I feel is very general for anyone. I am still trying to make sense of it all, whether it was just incorrect or wasn't meant for us, or maybe it actually was. As I've been asking my mum a lot of questions about if there is a God, an afterlife, and what's it like over there, and am I going to like it, the similarities and differences from here, or what we thought or believed. I also tried to see if I could fit the pieces of what was coming through somewhere else, or figure out why so much of the reading that came through was religious-based, as my mum really wasn't a religious person. But the weirdest thing did happen. The day I emailed you to ask you to do the reading, I got lost, driving in the dark, went to turn around, and ended up in some really religious indoor-outdoor place that had a bunch of religious statues, a Virgin Mary that had cried, etc., a place several strangers several years ago in the past had told me to visit, but I never knew where it was, and we aren't Catholic. However, I took a few pics that night, and it was in my phone. I know as a child my mum went to church. She believed in God, angels, good and evil, all the things you had mentioned, but she didn't practice it daily, nor did she go to services as an adult. You were right, it was a large part of my life, though in the past. You mentioned you thought you saw a nursery or a Sunday school, a theatre, singing. I'm wondering if she was showing you where I used to work, a daycare in church. My mum loved going there at Christmas to watch the children's Christmas plays. She did not attend there, though, or sing in the church. Well, again, I can't tell you anything for sure that it was referring to you or your mother, or even if it was your mother. I don't know. The way it seems to happen is that Titan connects me in some psychic way because he knows who it is. I think it most definitely was your mother. And I have absolutely no idea where all this religious stuff did come from, but it was very strong and it really did feel important. So she writes, you mentioned something about my mum having a favorite walking shoe that she had gotten dirty and was having trouble cleaning. I don't recall that ever happening and ironically, I had a picture in my phone of a bunch of dirty shoes I had to throw away because they got flooded in an old house. So she says, the dirty shoe pic, combined with the religious pics in my phone, had me very skeptical again of the stuff that was coming through in the reading. Well, I can only say I'm actually quite honored, because since I don't actually have access to your phone, and you think that it was something that was in your phone and can definitely see that it was relevant, I would say that's a big hit, and I rather like that. She said, I gave it a little bit more thought, and I think my dad cleaned his favorite shoes one day shortly after she died. Okay, so maybe she meant that. I really don't know. I'm not sure, Jan. I don't know where that image came from, but certainly there's stuff about shoes going on here. I have no idea what it could mean, and it sounds like there was something there. Let's see what else I can remember. Oh yes, UFOs and aliens was mentioned. She never said much about them, but I'm pretty sure she believed they could exist. Well, I don't know, Jen. I've been talking about that an awful lot lately, so I'm perfectly willing to admit that maybe that's just something from my higher self. But for whatever, it came through. You mentioned she was curious. My aunt said that was true. I could see when you said she was interested in things you had recently been saying and talking about in your podcasts. I told her to listen and watch for you and Titan, told her your names and podcast name, because I had written to you and asked you to please do the reading so I could communicate with her. On a side note, once you communicate with someone, a spirit, a soul from the other side, do they ever come back to the future to you on their own, knowing you are able to hear them and pass messages to the living? Well, Jen, I don't know, because I've only been doing this for a year, and I've only been in touch with a few people through their request, and I know that Esther's husband, he's obviously come through a couple of times to me in my thoughts, and I did a reading for her as well, which was she wanted to remain private, so you guys have never heard it, and that was the one which she said nearly everything was right. He I think's popped through. And apart from Titan, I don't think anybody else really comes through regularly. Could I? Yes, I'm sure I could. But again, it's a question of me asking. I think in sort of spirit lore, it's called summoning. I think this is what they do in magic and black magic and all sorts of esoteric arts. They have to summon spirits and summon devils and angels. It's exactly the same. It's just a word for calling them. And, how will they know they're wanted unless they're called? And the only way I know at the moment how to call them is through Titan. I could try calling them without Titan, but in a way, I suppose I'm a bit concerned that what may come through is not quite right. So I haven't done that yet. I think I could do that again. I think I could do it again and again. And actually, I had a thought yesterday that maybe series 2 of this podcast, I should get back to perhaps more the original idea, which is talking to famous people. And I haven't done much of that. I did some of it in the early days, and summoning them to come and talk to me and telling me about things in their life. And maybe that would be interesting to people. So let's see where that goes. Has my mum come back to you any more since the initial reading? No. If so, do you mind sharing with me what she said? No, I can't do that. How do spirits communicate with us in the afterlife? Again, Jen, as I mentioned to you in an email, please listen to my previous podcasts, because I've gone into lots of information there about how spirits are communicating with us. And it's easier than for me to explain it in great detail. As I understand, we all are 100% able to do it. It's just not everyone has bothered to try and attune themselves. So it probably takes some training as well, and for a lot of people. In my case, I just seem to be lucky. I was born with a particular gift that I try to cover up for most of my life, and things just pop in. That's how they communicate. And I have a guardian angel Titan who's done her best to be a gatekeeper for me. I just have to add there at the moment, I'm not doing a lot of it because I feel completely psychically blocked at the moment. I think I've commented on that in the previous couple of episodes. Ever since I started getting all this information about aliens and UFOs and the end of the world and the great catastrophes, and I put that information out there, I felt something was trying to shut me down and stop me from my further revelations. But I've begun to think, in fact, it was probably Titan and probably other guardians around me that have sort of erected a kind of a psychic firewall around me to stop me being attacked by maybe malevolent people. Now, they could well be government mind control experts, or they could be spirits or aliens. I have no idea, but I have most definitely in the last couple of the weeks felt completely shut off from the spirit world. Which is fine. I'm just treating it as something that is important at the moment. It's nothing that's affecting me massively. And then she carries on. Now, these are the positive and accurate things that I said. My mum was very kind and did believe in helping others and did spend her life trying to help those less fortunate, sticking up for the underdog or helping anyone in need. Well, Jen, thanks for that. I could see from your point of view that could be a Barnum thing, a Barnum statement, because you could say that about millions of people around the world. But again, that came through. She did believe in angels, good and evil, God and living a good life. She did value and appreciate the simplicity of things in life, like family, nature, helping mankind, trying to uplift other people's spirits. Again, this could apply to anyone, Jen. I fully accept that. She was a giver and did enjoy giving to others, as you mentioned. She did suffer from multiple illnesses over several years. However, she did not have cancer, as you mentioned she might have had. Although we really don't know 100% for sure that she didn't because of her situation. They were unable to do many of the diagnostic tests in order to find out if she did or to really know what else was wrong with her. I asked her several times if when you get to the other side and they do this supposed life review, if they tell you what you died from, because we don't really exactly know. Well, there we go, Jen. I think you know now. I think by the sound of it, she died of cancer, if I'm right. Do you know if they find any information on the other side or not, what they died from? I think we've just answered that question. And I could only say what comes to mind is that everything has been planned anyway, according to how people die. And I think they already know when they passed on what they died of because they planned it. I can't actually say that they would probably spend much time sitting around discussing that. I laughed when you mentioned she was drawing you over to a candle and that she seemed to find it of an interest. I thought you were going to say that she yelled at you to be careful with it, as it could cause a fire. She did like candles, especially the ones depicted in the older days, or when the power would go out, but rarely used them for fear of fires. You were right, she did love music, all genres of it. She had an eclectic taste and appreciation for all types of music, especially loud music. She never sang in public, but she did like humming and singing at home. You were right when you said she had a philosophical view on death, that she didn't really fear death and just accepted it as a normal part of life. That's true. You said that she didn't want her family to be sad or worry about her, especially me. That's so true. Sorry about that. That was my phone ringing. And she said, I have saved the best part for last. I could explain away or discredit the validity of the entire reading in and over my analytical and over-skeptical brain, except for one thing. She's got a very bad attack of the caps lock, has Jen here. You said that one thing was either a darn great guess if you should play the lottery, or my mum was really crafty in coming up with something only just the two of us would know. Now, isn't that, Jen, what you actually wanted? And it's when you said that part about our names, Jenny and Debbie. Now, I never asked my mum why she named me Jennifer, but called me Jenny instead. And the past few years since she got sicker, she would hum and sing and make up these silly songs about anything going, on that moment, and she would make zero sense except that she would rhyme all the words and it was really funny. She told me it helped distract her from all the pain. You specifically said she called me that for no reason, no other reason than she liked to rhyme the names and sing and play silly games or something like that. That part shocked me. Although I guess someone could guess that, but Jenny and Debbie really don't exactly rhyme. But she liked rhyming stuff. That's not the most common thing in the world that just anyone would do. Well, it's funny, Jen, that was probably one of the first things that came through to me. And I think it came through to me before the actual podcast. And she was doing it. She was just being very silly and rhyming Debbie and Jenny and Debbie and Jenny. That was for sure. Now, please know I trust and believe you. Well, don't do that yet, Jen. But I want to know 1,000%. No, nothing small in your world, Jen. She wants to know 1,000% without any shadow of doubt that this is true and there really is an afterlife, that she really is still alive there and really can still know and what goes on there with us and really can still communicate and talk to mediums like yourself. Because if it's not true, then I'm back to square one, fearing death, feeling an empty void without my mother, and life has zero purpose if this is all that it really is. Now, Jen, when I read that, I was so disappointed because you're putting me under huge pressure here, because you're now saying that, if you are not 1,000% sure that what I've said or that there is an afterlife, that life has zero purpose for you. Now, please, that's not the point. I think you've got enough information now that you should be 100% sure, or at least 80% sure that something is going on. Listen to the rest of the podcast, Jen. Listen to all the things that have happened and then see if that helps you be convinced. But I'm not here to convince people. I'm here just to do my podcast and to tell you what comes through me. I can't be responsible for people fearing death or feeling an empty void in their life. I can't be responsible if you rely on this knowledge from a medium. And I would say be very careful, because you can't rely on a lot of these mediums because so many of them are fake. So listen to what I've said, see if it resonates with you. I'm 1,000,000% sure that it's right, of course, but that's why I do it. But I can't persuade you. You have to come to that realization yourself, Jen. So she continues, so I have very mixed feelings about the reading. I think a lot of what you said is kind of sound like, I'll say it again. I think a lot of what you said did kind of sound like her, even if it didn't. I imagine from the little I've studied about mediumship, it sounds like sometimes things can be interpreted in different ways depending on the reader's spiritual gifts and how they interpret the symbolism or the way the spirit world communicates with us. Completely, Jen. And I think I've said that before. I think, some mediums see things in different ways. They have different abilities. Some hear things, some see things, some feel things, some read tea leaves. I mean, there's 101 different ways to convey psychic feeling. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I can't express how much it meant to me. I wish it had helped me know without any shadow of doubt the uncertainties and questions I seek. But I'm becoming more optimistic that maybe it's real. Well, I'm really glad to hear that. I guess I just still have so many questions about all of this. It's entirely new to me. I've tried listening to various podcasts, watching TV shows, and reading about it. I see a lot of commonalities as well as differences too. It's far more complicated than I could have ever imagined. I know a bit about the spiritual, scientific, and religious explanations about death and universe, and I gotta say, none of them really make sense to me. I just wish there was more concrete answers and evidence for these kind of things. Well, Jen, I don't think anybody's going to be able to offer anyone, and I say that to all my listeners, anything concrete as long as you're alive, unless you've experienced things yourself. Please, I genuinely believe that all the stuff that's come through on my 51 episodes is coming through to me from other realms. I believe it's true. A lot of people believe it's true. As I said, thousands and thousands of people have downloaded my podcast. A few of them have actually taken the time to write to me. And I really encourage you, please write to me. I'm human, I'm here. I really am real, and I'm not an IT specialist, and I am from the UK. So please, if you want me to help you in any way, I'm here to help, because that's what I want to do. It's my payback time after years of taking in business. She says that, sorry if this email became too lengthy. I felt bad that it took me so much time to reply. I just wanted to make sure I gave you an honest and sincere feedback about everything. I really hope that my lack of reply wasn't the reason you took a break this week from your podcast. No, Jen, it wasn't. I was mentally and to a certain extent physically exhausted. Something happened. I was sort of attacked on a psychic level, and I just felt one day to the next almost, I can't do this at the moment, because I can't communicate with these higher spirits or these aliens or with my guardian angels or anything at the moment. I need to find out what's going on. And I know something big is going to happen, and I know things are happening right now. But there is definitely some sort of psychic war on, and I know I'm not alone. And I'll tell you a little bit about that at the end, about an interview that a very wonderful woman called Sarah Gamm has just given to Ross Coulthard on his YouTube channel. I'll tell you about that in a minute. And she's, she works within the Pentagon, and she works in the Aerial Anomalous Working Group that is set up by the government and the secret agencies to either cover up or to get to the bottom of what's going on. And she's a psychic. And so they have a lot of psychics that are working within the government. So you can tell there is a tremendous link between psychic phenomena and people that are aliens that are coming to visit us. Anyway, she carries on. I know how easy it is to get inside our own heads and doubt ourselves. I really hope that my late reply didn't somehow make you second guess yourself and your gifts and abilities. Jen, I'm always second guessing my gifts or abilities, if you call it that. I'm naturally skeptic, and I know a lot of my readers are too, or a lot of my listeners are too, and that's the right way to be. I've managed to convince myself. I hope I've convinced other people, and that's all I can do. You did the reading for me. Thank you so much. Your bio for last week, I sensed a frustration and anxiety. Not sure if it was from this or from just the recent events happening in our troubled world. Well, I hope you're doing okay. I am doing okay, but I do need a break. And I think after this podcast, I'm going to take a bit of a break, but I will be back. I just need to get my head back to where it was. And I need to find out when this firewall is going to be lifted off me. I hope it's not going to be lifted off me when awful things have happened, but it's probably just as well for my mental health that I do stop for a while, because there's too much coming through, and it's really tough to digest. Did my mum tell you, or can she sense if anyone else was with her on the other side at the time of the reading? No. Do you know if she's okay? How would you know if they aren't? She didn't say anything when she came through the other day, but again, I'll see what comes through from her, if anything else. Did my mum tell you anything else that maybe you didn't think was appropriate, or maybe was too personal, or that you just decided you didn't want to include in the podcast? I'm kind of surprised she would come through so serious and religious, as she really wasn't that way here, and maybe over there is different. Well, I thought about that. No, obviously nothing has come through, and I think I've said before, I'm not a professional psychic. I'm not terribly sure what to say and not to say, so I just let it all out for right or for wrong, and I either get it right or wrong, and either it's coming from me or it's coming from out there. The religious thing, yes, I mean, it was extremely strong. And there is a possibility that maybe part of your mother's soul entity is somehow was extremely religious. And maybe there's some sort of crossover there between different lives. I have no idea, but it was definitely very strong. Can you ever ask them specific or general questions? I really had things I wanted to ask my mum and tell her. Yes, I think so. And I think you've mentioned that you'll probably maybe give me a list of things that you'd like to specifically ask her. But we had decided that the first encounter should be based on first names only, so no one would be skeptical or have too many details to influence the reading, and it would give her a chance to say whatever she wanted to say when it came through. can they still see and hear us when we talk to them? When we summons them to here on the earthly realm, can they just instantly get here? Do we pull them away from something they're involved in there? Are we holding them up from crossing over by talking to them or asking them to still be present with us? What do they even do over there? Are they able to talk to other spirits and do stuff together? I've heard very little about this stuff. Well, Jen, as I said, please listen to my previous podcasts. You need to listen to all of them by the sound of it, because I know you're a new listener, but it's all been answered. They do everything. They get involved in helping people in this realm and in other planetary realms or other realities. They don't have a life like us, so they're not actually thinking about what's boring them or not. I don't think the word boredom would ever come into their minds. They're living simultaneous lives with people alive now. They're living simultaneously in many, many different timescales. They have their concept of existence is just way beyond what we can begin to understand. So you can't really expect them to be feeling or acting as if they had just been the person who had died. So yes, of course they can see and hear us, as they can see and hear probably limitless things as well. And when I first learned that, as you'll hear in a podcast, I often thought about God, because I remember when I was young thinking, how could God hear me pray? How could he hear millions of people simultaneously praying at the same time? Well, obviously, if you believe in God, that particular spirit, that entity called God, is fully capable of that, because when you get into a position where you're not in your physical body anymore and you move, I presume, through a lot of training and knowledge and past lives, you can choose to get involved in helping not only people who've recently passed, but also people who are alive, and helping them keep on their path. And they obviously can help people, millions of people or thousands of people simultaneously, and it's no effort to them at all. So what else? I'm sure you loved your parents. She also said, it really scares me. I don't know how much you know. I guess no one really knows until they get to wherever they go when they die. I'm sure you loved your parents. I can ask you in all honesty, if someone would swear on a Bible or someone's life they most love, or to give their solid word to something, I would never out anyone. This is entirely between us. But what percentage do you believe? What percentage do you believe that all of this stuff that's coming through me, through this mediumship, is real? Or do you think it's something as humans we think is real, but is just a coping mechanism for ourselves after death? Well, Jen, you sound like my wife. She most definitely thinks it's all just a bunch of bollocks. Sorry about that. And it's all just coming from my own imagination. And yes, she thinks that religion and all this sort of stuff is just a coping mechanism to help people not be so frightened of the fact that they die one day, and all of this stuff is just stops, and it almost seems like it's for nothing. How do I feel? Well, I feel, as I said to you, I feel 1,000,000% sure that this is not it, and I'm sure that if you listen to the podcast, you'll see why. I will talk a little bit further just at the end of this about Sarah Gamm, and she talks about, somebody asked her the same question. Has all the experience that she's had working as a government scientist, as well as members of secret organizations in the government, in the Pentagon. She has an office in the Pentagon, and has all the stuff she's discovered about aliens visiting Earth and races communicating with our government, and the re-engineering of alien technology and the government's cover-up. And she's seen all the high-definition pictures that we've not seen, and she was very careful about what she could say and couldn't say, because she is open to huge amounts of prosecution. And she was asked, why aren't they coming forward, these people, and talking about it, and why is the government so secretive? And she's saying it's because it's a pile of shit now. It started off probably in the 40s when they found in Roswell crashed alien spacecraft, and decided, my God, how do we tell the public? And it was just a small pile of shit. But now it's a huge pile of shit, because so many people have lied, so many things have happened, cover-ups on a monumental scale. things that would be considered to be totally illegal because you'd be lying to government and Congress and breaking all your congressional oaths. The money that's been sidelined illegally to these projects, the people that may have been killed to maintain secrecy, the lies, the scheming. The pile of shit just is so large, she says now, that it's almost impossible for anybody to do anything about it. And so many people have died now who were involved in building this pile of shit. And she just says that's probably the biggest reason why we're not getting much disclosure at the moment, because they just don't know what to do. It's such a huge problem. They don't really know where to start. But they have started. They've got a congressional hearing. I think it continues even in this month. But a lot of people are very skeptical. They just think it's going to be so hard for the government to expose this stuff. So it's not going to come from the government. It's going to be coming from whistleblowers, from people outside the government who are so sick of it and have felt now that they've been deceiving people for so long and they want to get it off their chest before they die. Or it could in fact be from alien races that have been working with the government who are very frustrated too that we're, as citizens, being kept in the dark, and that they think it's more than about time that the human race realize that it's by far not alone, and they've been involved in the human race since the beginning. And these civilizations, many of them are millions of years more civilized than us, and yet we know nothing about them officially. So I think that is how I deal with it, and I think that's how Sarah Gamm deals with it. Anyway, she finishes off the letter by saying, do you believe in an afterlife? Any gods, any religions? That the afterlife can really communicate with us? Well, obviously, that's why I'm doing this, Jen. And again, listen to my podcast and you'll hear more. How accurate have you been able to prove it with solid evidence or facts based on what you've experienced through yourself and your own gifts, your readings, your knowledge, or maybe if you ever sought out psychics and mediums? Okay, well, apart from the channeling that I've done, and I mentioned, I think probably right at the very beginning, how I got into mediumship in a way, and I was doing psychometry, but also I have seen what you might call a UFO. I think I mentioned that too. I can only say that I have seen what you might call a ghost. I have heard things, I see things, I feel things ever since I was a baby when I was in my cot and I saw things walk, people, I think they were kind of walking around, had visions. So I mean, facts? No. How can I prove it? Nobody can prove this. I've got nothing on video, and as you know, even video can be faked wonderfully these days. So I can't prove a thing any more than the Catholic Church can. Or Islam or Buddhism or any of these faiths. You have to take this stuff on faith, and it has to be related to how you feel. Are you afraid to die knowing what you know about the other side? Well, quite the contrary. No, I don't mean to say it this way, but it comes out this way, that I'm kind of looking forward to it. I don't want to die. I have wonderful young kids and a wife and a life, and I have other kids and from another marriage. My mother's very close to the end. I know that my mother's not frightened of dying because she has a tremendous belief. I think she's mainly Catholic, but she's the one who also started me off as being spiritual in my very early years. So no, I feel very, very comfortable with what's going to happen. How are you able to know the difference between what's your own thoughts and feelings versus a spirit you're channeling and trying to talk to? I don't, and that's why I think there is some crossover. I mentioned like the UFO thing. I've been talking about it a lot, so maybe that comes through and I think it's coming from somewhere else. I really don't know. I can't answer that question. I think some stuff does and some stuff doesn't. Dumb question, but when you get to the other side, are spirits all together, or is there a division like here on Earth, like rich and poor, good and evil, famous, not famous? For example, can a spirit go and locate a famous spirit? How do they recognize and communicate with each other over there without a body? This entire concept boggles my mind. Again, I've answered that in all my previous podcasts. We've met lots of famous spirits. I think it's not the same when you're there because they're not the individual spirits of Princess Diana or the Queen or Neil Peart or any of these, Bach, or these people who've come through. These people are not that person anymore. They are that person that was living, that was famous, as we call it, is just a tiny, tiny, infinitesimal fraction of what their spirit is. And the part that was left behind is almost like a bot. It's not there anymore. But what was them is forever maintained within their spirit and can be accessed from up to the point that they die. And thereafter, it's their spirit consciousness reflecting on their life and seeing it in much, much wider terms, obviously from how they chose their life to what they're doing after their life, and everything else. So yes, if you when you die, if you want to talk to someone who you were particularly in awe of in your life, go ahead and do it. And I'm sure it's entirely possible. And from what I understand, most of these spirits are very obliging and very happy. But they carry on if that particular life interested them, like Bach or Neil Peart. They will continue doing whatever interested them in part of what they do, but they're doing many, many things simultaneously. So it seems only natural that if you're interested in music or riding a motorbike, you'd probably still keep doing that in the afterlife. Out of curiosity, what do you do in your personal life, your hobbies, your career? Have you always lived in the UK? What part, if you don't mind me asking? Well, my personal life, I think I've said quite a lot about it. My hobbies, as I get nearer to retirement, I really want to start hobbies, but at the moment I'm just a father of two 13-year-old girls, which is an awful lot, and a wife, which is a lot of work as well, and looking after a house. I work full-time still. I hope when I retire I'll be able to do more photography. I want to do painting. I want to carry on doing spiritual work. And at the moment I'm seriously thinking about trying to offer my services to a hospice in my town. Of course, my German isn't brilliant. It's okay, but hopefully there'll be enough people who want to talk to me in English, because I felt one of my callings very much is to talk to people who are dying, and maybe get involved in that. And as you've mentioned above, maybe giving them some good feeling and making them feel better, and maybe putting their mind at rest so they don't die in fear. So that might be one of the things that I'll get involved in. I was born in London. I lived a lot of my life because my father was an opera singer. He later on became a school teacher, and he moved us around the country. And I was living everywhere from Leicestershire, Worcestershire, Surrey. But I'm really a Londoner. But obviously my mother being originally from New York, I'm a New Yorker as well. And I spent many years working in New York in my job. And I love New York, and my son, my oldest son, is living there right now. So I am a Londoner, but I also like to consider myself to be a bit of a New Yorker. No worries if you can't answer all my questions. Well, I did my best. I hope I have managed to address these things. And please listen to this podcast. Please tell everyone you can about my podcast. I'd love to see more people involved. I'd love people to write to me. Just tell me how you're feeling. Tell me what's going on. Ask me some questions. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, she says, thanks again for having done the reading for my mum and taking the time to read this lengthy email. I truly appreciate it more than you will ever know. Have a great night and blessed. Jen. Well, thank you, Jen. Lovely email. Thank you. So lastly, for a while, again, I will put a link in the description. I really would encourage you to watch Ross Coulthard's show on YouTube. And in this episode, he's sitting down with Sarah Gamm. And she's a former intelligence analyst for the UAP task force. And she's going to talk about her work with the Pentagon and her psychic encounters. She also describes at the moment that made her realize that we're not alone, and explains why some of the UAP videos on the web might not be accurate. I've watched another interview she does on another channel. There's quite a lot if you do Google Sarah Gamm. I've even written her an email because she gives you her email address, because I've asked her about the psychic attack that I'm under at the moment, and how does that relate to some of her experiences? Because she does talk about the difficulty of exposure, and she naturally feels that some people could be attacked or imprisoned if they do expose stuff that is confidential. But I'm very interested to know how she feels as both a scientist and a psychic about the feeling that I'm having at the moment, that somehow I'm being attacked and told to keep quiet, and what I could do about that. So I hope she'll reply to me. She sounds like a lovely lady, and I mean an extremely convincing scientific witness. I don't know. She could be talking a load of bull. I don't know. I mean, she is a psychic. She has a website. I'm sure she charges for her services. That's not bad in itself. But she's also a former intelligence analyst, and she was talking about the office she had in the Pentagon, and she's rated, I think, to the top secret level of information. She's able to sit in on meetings and look at information that is considered, I think, almost the most secret there is. So she's been very careful about what she says because she doesn't want to go to prison. But most definitely, she talks about having seen very clear pictures and I think even videos of UAPs. And I know she has an awful lot more intelligence about visiting alien species through time than she's really able to talk about. And more than once, she has to say, "I'm sorry, I can't answer that question." It's just desperately sad that we're in this situation still, that all these brilliant people have got 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the door, and it takes that either they have to leave their government jobs and worry about perhaps being got after by people, the men in black, and giving up their whole careers in order to be able to do the right thing. It seems terribly sad, but luckily, obviously, she's got this sideline as being a medium, and I'm sure she's brilliant. But she does say what I've always felt, felt lately, that there is just a total confluence between psychic ability and the understanding of who are these entities that are living amongst us, that have always apparently lived amongst us, that live under the oceans and live in amongst us in other dimensions that we can't see, and they can go in and out of these dimensions with total fluidity. They can go through space instantly. And maybe even somehow are related to us as well, or maybe in some respect created us at the very beginning. And she said in one interview that we're almost a zoo, and the people who come to visit are like us visiting animals in a zoo. We're at a stage of our development that they find it fascinating to see how we go. Are we going to blow ourselves up? How are we going to develop? It may sound really annoying to think that we're just nothing more than zoo animals, but what else would we be to civilizations that are millions of years more advanced than us? Could we ever imagine that? So anyway, listen to that. So really, all that I have to say now is thank you so much for listening over the last year. It's been great fun. I'm so glad I've done this. It's not over. I promise you I will come back. But please write to me. Please ask me questions. Please tell everyone you can about this podcast. Let's try to make it really famous. And I can then do what Sarah Gamm and all these other people are trying to do, which is to get this word out there, this knowledge out there, that we are not alone, that there is no death, and that there is this wonderful knowledge that could come to us if we would only allow it to. Thank you so much, and see you really soon. Bye.